Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Urban Update. I'm Byron Barnett. On the show today, a taste of ethnic Boston. All the details on Boston's original multi-ethnic food festival. That's later on. Also, Fenway Park opens its doors for the 11th annual Latino Family Festival, an event for all ages and also the largest health-themed event of its kind. But up first, as the opioid addiction crisis continues to escalate across Massachusetts and the U.S. with the help of Camtech and the GE Foundation, GEMS Boxes is addressing this issue with a life-saving supply kiosk for people suffering opioid overdoses by empowering bystanders to take action and save someone in need. Few technological solutions exist to empower bystanders, but GEMS is looking to change that. Joining us to tell us more about GEMS Boxes and how they're addressing the opioid addiction crisis is Dr. Scott Weiner. He's an emergency physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and he's representing GEMS Boxes, which I understand, Doctor, is General Emergency Medical Supplies.
Correct.
Thank you for coming in and welcome to Urban Update.
Thanks for having us.
Perhaps you could start by just explaining to me and our viewers exactly what GEMS Boxes is.
Sure. So the idea is to have a kiosk that the public can access for time-sensitive emergencies. And we see them all the time. We know that there's those defibrillators that are on the wall for someone has a cardiac arrest. But there's also some other emergencies out there, such as an acute allergic reaction, or most predominant in our minds right now is the opioid problem, where someone has an overdose. We're getting the antidote to them in the most timely of fashions is important.
Okay. So what sparked the idea for GEMS?
So many of us and the team came up with this idea. First at the hospital, we were talking about the idea that sometimes the ambulance can't get to the patient quickly enough, and so it would be great to have the antidote delivered even before the ambulance arrives. And then kind of concurrently, some teams from MIT and the Harvard School of Public Health and Babson also came up with that idea. And then we all came together at the Camtech MGH Hackathon that you alluded to before, which is a forum held last year where a bunch of different people from different fields came together to come up with creative solutions for the epidemic. And we came up with the idea of these boxes.
And again, when you talk about what's in the boxes, Narcan, just for those who don't know, what exactly is Narcan and what does it do to someone who has an overdose?
Right, so Narcan is an inhibitor of the opioid receptor in the brain. And what that means is that when someone uses an opioid, that could be everything from heroin to medicines like Percocet or OxyContin. If you give this medication, it kicks that medicine out of the way and blocks its effect. And
if someone is passed out overdose, it wakes them up?
It can revive them, correct.
Okay, that's what we've heard a lot of it. Now, why does the public need a resource like this, in your view? Isn't this what emergency responders are there for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, despite the excellent work of the emergency responders, we still had over 2,000 people in the state that died last year from opioid overdose. It's just staggering, and every year that number is going up. And so it's the response from first responders is amazing, and usually in most urban areas they can get to the patient quickly enough, but we think that it's not quickly enough in some situations. And so the idea is that we would deliver naloxone to the patient before the ambulance arrives, and then the ambulance can come resume care at that point. But we want to get that antidote to them as quickly as possible because that's where the most effects are.
Now, in your view, I guess what makes GEMS unique from other concepts like this that are out there?
Yeah, it's actually more complicated than you would imagine. Like I mentioned before, the defibrillators, those are just a piece of equipment that you can store in a box. Narcan, or naloxone, is actually, it's a liquid medication. And so to have it available for the public, especially outdoors, you have to have temperature control. You can imagine if it's in Boston in the middle of February, it's going to be freezing. And same thing if it's too hot, like we're having these summer days, then it can also damage the medication. So we needed a temperature control system, and also it is a medication. And so we're giving it to a bystander to administer to an overdose victim, but we're still administering a medicine. So the regulations around it are very strict. For that reason, it's tied into the cellular network, it's tied into 911, with the idea that we would involve first responders while we're getting the antidote to the patient more quickly.
And you say it has to be, administered how? With a shot, with like an IV, or more like just kind of a punch, like an EpiPen or something? Or
Yes, it's a great question. So there's lots of different ways you can administer Narcan.
And I'm asking this question because if you're having lay people do this, people aren't doctors. There's not a doctor everywhere around.
Right. Well, there's two forms of the antidote that are made for the public. One of them is an injector, similar to an EpiPen that actually talks to you. But the other form is actually a spray that goes in the nose. It looks similar to like Flonase. People would use that for allergies. And it's very simple. You just open the kit, put it in the nose, and push a little plunger, and it administers the antidote.
Okay. Now you held a mock trial in Central Square recently. Tell us how that went and what was that all about? What was the outcome?
Yeah, so it was an amazing experience. So we had this concept, and we thought it was a good idea, but we really didn't know until we did a simulation. And so we went to Central Square. This was with the assistance of the police, fire, EMS, and the city council. And we had a station for bystanders to walk by. We had a mannequin laying on the sidewalk with some drug paraphernalia next to them. And we had the bystander call a simulated 911 line, and then they accessed the box, which was unlocked remotely by 911, and then they got the antidote and gave it to the mannequin. So we had hoped to have 25 people a day for a couple of days, and we had over 50 in one day. And nearly everybody was able to do it with just minimal instruction.
In your view, what has been the biggest challenge you faced while trying to make GEMS available to the public?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. The first thing is just the regulations around it, like we were talking about before. It is a medication. So figuring out how we can get it in a box that then would be the surrogate for 911 or a city or a town, we're navigating those waters right now. And the second part is that there's still a stigma issue attached to this. And so getting the community to accept that this is an important tool, this is affecting our loved ones, friends, neighbors, that having this out there is not to permit drug use, it's not to encourage drug use, it's to get the antidote to save people's lives, because we really need that right now.
Now, what's in the future for GEMS, and I guess, how can people get involved with this? Say if you're in a rural area or something and you want this, or if you know people who are drug users, I guess, what can regular people do just to sort of learn more and get involved?
Yeah, sure. Well, our first steps are we're going to try a real trial. Hopefully we'll get some stations set up, ideally in Cambridge, and then and we'll see if it's actually working in real life. That's our next ideal step. For people to get involved, anybody in Massachusetts can go to a commercial pharmacy, get Narcan, even without a prescription. Just have it handy, because you never know if you're going to encounter a person that's having an overdose.
It sounds like it's something that's important to educate yourself about, because, again, maybe someone you know, maybe someone you don't know would have an overdose right in front of you sometime.
Yep, correct. We hear sometimes people on the bus, for example, they just happen to have a kit and they've reversed people that were there as well.
And finally, I guess, where would you put these? I mean, are you like outside a building, like a firebox or something, or or in rural areas where would you put these sorts of things?
Right, you hit it already. So urban areas where lots of people are around is a perfect example, stadiums, for example. And then rural areas where the transport time from EMS to getting to the patient is prolonged is also another perfect example.
Okay, and we'll wrap it up there. Any last thoughts that you'd like to leave our viewers with?
No, thank you so much for having me, and let's get this antidote out there for people.
Okay, it sounds like a great idea, and congratulations on just working with what sounds like a real promising idea. Dr. Scott Weiner from Brigham and Women's Hospital. Great. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, man.
Okay, and in just a few minutes, Fenway Park opens up its doors to the Latino Family Festival. All of that details in just a few. We'll be right back.